Ceann Comhairle. One of the greatest privileges and honours in any democracy is the privilege of being elected to one's national parliament. It is an honour that every member of this House has had, sometimes on repeated and successive occasions. And it is an honour and a privilege which is shared today by Deputies Lee and O'Sullivan, who are joining the House. And each of us, when we are elected as a member of Dáil Éireann, we're elected to represent our constituents. Doesn't always mean that we have to follow every trend in public opinion from time to time. There are occasions when we have to take positions as legislators which aren't always the popular position. But we do, I believe, have a duty as members of the House to reflect generally what is the will and the wish of the people. Now, like Deputy Kenny, I've been here for a number of motions of confidence. And their motions of confidence are put down from time to time when a government misbehaves or members of a government misbehave, or when there is some major political event. And the one thing that has always characterised any motion of confidence that I've ever been here for has been the belief on both sides of the House that, or the lack of belief as the case may be, that the government enjoyed the confidence of the public. That whatever decision might be made in here, that if it were put to the test outside, that the government would win. That has always been the government's principal defence. That defence doesn't apply today. The one thing that we know today as we debate this motion of confidence is that if the government were to take its case to the Irish people today, it would be defeated. This motion of confidence in Dáil Éireann is coming days after the Irish people have voted no confidence in this government. And when the Taoiseach turns around and asks the members of the government parties and the independents who support the government to vote confidence in the government, he is asking them to do something which flies in the face of what the people of this country want. Now, the Taoiseach says that that is the constitutional position. That indeed may be a very literal reading of the Constitution, but I do not believe that it is the spirit of our Constitution. Our constitutional position does not provide for fixed-term elections of our Dáil. It provides for discretion, that a Taoiseach can exercise from time to time to seek a dissolution of the Dáil in any range of circumstances. And I believe that this is one of the circumstances which the framers of our Constitution anticipated, that where a government had lost the confidence of the people, where there was no longer a sufficient mandate, a sufficient authority from the people of the country for the government to continue, that the honourable thing for the head of government to do in those circumstances is to resign and to seek a dissolution of the Dáil, and to ask the people as to whether the government, that particular government, a combination of parties, should continue or whether it should be replaced. The Taoiseach says that, in his defence, that the reason that the people of the country voted no confidence in the government last Friday is because the government had made hard choices. That's not the case. The reason that the people of the country voted no confidence in the government last Friday is that the government made the wrong choices. Wrong choices over a period of time. And bad leadership, I would suggest, Taoiseach. Over the period of time since you've held the office of Taoiseach, you have led the defeat of the Lisbon Treaty, even though you had the support of the two main opposition parties. You introduced a blanket guarantee for the banking system last September, which was a bad decision and which has exposed the Irish taxpayer to continued difficulties in the years ahead. Instead of dealing fairly with the problems in the public finances, You introduced income levies instead of being honest with people and saying that they were taxes, and those levies in turn hit people who were on lower incomes most severely. You targeted disadvantaged and special needs children for education cuts. You abolished grants for children in risk of early school leaving and the grants that were available for traveller children. You axed special needs classes for children with general learning disabilities. You took away the book grant from disadvantaged children. You increased class sizes. You decided not to proceed with the cervical cancer vaccine, which would only have cost 16 million. You scrapped medical cards for the over 70s, only to be forced to reintroduce them for some over 70s. You introduced an increase in VAT, which has decimated trade and which has caused huge problems for business. You've established, or you propose to establish, because of course you haven't established it in legislation, the NAMA on board bailout instead of dealing more effectively with the banking system. You got rid of the Christmas bonus, something that was valued by old age pensioners, and I could go on. But it's not just that you made the wrong choices over the course of the past year. It is also that on every single issue, you came to it late. This time last year, the opposition parties in this House were telling you that there was an economic problem. We were telling you that people were losing their jobs, that businesses were having difficulty getting credit from the banks, and you wouldn't listen. You denied this time last year that there was an economic problem. And because you denied that there was an economic problem, and because you delayed dealing with it, you made the problem worse. And thirdly, the reason that people have no confidence in you is not just because of the decisions that you made over the course of the past year, or even that you didn't see the problems when they were staring everybody else in the face. It is because you and your government have got us into the hole in the first place. It was the policies that were pursued by the Fianna Fáil government, and particularly presided over by you in your capacity as Minister for Finance, which has added to the global economic downturn from which we would have been affected anyway, and which made the problem worse in this country. It was the way in which you and your predecessor, Minister McCreevy, instead of dealing with the downturn in export activity, you blew additional air into the property bubble, which created the unsustainable level of construction activity. Tax incentivised it, continued to inflate it instead of letting it down slowly. And that is what has created and given rise to the economic difficulties that this country is in today. And in your defence, you turn around and you point and you say, well, there are differences in policy between Fianna Fáil, or Fine Gael, and the Labour Party. There are, yes. And we'll honestly address those differences in policy. But the real problem that I think people have is not the policy differences which are on the opposition benches, but that government policy continues to change from month to month and sometimes from week to week. And as we debate this motion here today, and as I said, I think that we need to reflect what is the wish of the Irish people. There is, I believe, and one of the things that I discovered and which I found extremely heartening in campaigning during the local and European elections and the by-elections, was the very strong sense among people, very strong sense of determination that we can get through the recession. The very strong sense as I would walk down a street and talk to business people, and they would tell me, yes, about the difficulties that they have now, customers not coming through the door, the difficulties that they have in getting credit from the banks, the way in which they would like to keep their employees. But their determination to stay in business, their determination to survive the recession, to get to the other side of it. The second thing is the concern that people have right across the country, not just for themselves in immediate terms, but for their children and for the future of this country. Over and over again, I heard people saying, we don't mind paying a bit extra, provided we know where it's going and provided we know what is being done with it. But what we're not prepared to accept is that we have to pay disproportionately, or that we have to pay unfairly, or that those who were the great beneficiaries of the Celtic Tiger years, those who benefited, for example, from the property speculation that took place, that there seems to be no action being taken to get them to make their contribution now. There is a will among people to put their shoulder to the wheel, to move the country forward, to restore the economy, to recover our fortunes, to get confidence back in the country again. And there is also a wish among people that the respect that this country once had internationally, that our financial institutions once had internationally, that our economy once had internationally, that would be restored again. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a fresh start. And the fresh start begins with a change of government. And you, I believe, Taoiseach, are doing a great disservice to this country to insist on staying in office in circumstances where the people of the country want you out of office, and in circumstances where the needs of this country are for a fresh mandate and a fresh start for a new government. We all understand that there are difficult decisions that have to be made in the years ahead. There is work that has to be done. We have to, for example, get our banks operating again and get credit moving to business again. Your government and my party have differing views on that. Those differing views go back to the night of the 30th of September when you brought in the bank guarantee scheme. We thought that was the wrong way to go. We felt that that was providing a blanket, unconditional safety net for the banks at the expense of the taxpayer. As time has progressed, we have been proven right on that. You were the person, Taoiseach, who came in here that night, told us we were wrong. You said to us that if the guarantee scheme was introduced, that it would not cost the taxpayer anything, that there would not have to be any money put into the banks. You were wrong about that, because you have ended up repeatedly now having to put forward money that frankly we don't have in order to recapitalise banks, and it's just an endless continuation of money being put forward when the guarantee scheme is in place and the taxpayer has to bear liability for the entire banking system. There is a better way. The better way is the way that the Labour Party has argued and which is supported. And you referred in your speech today to the commentators that have commented favourably on what the government has been doing in relation to the economy. 20 leading economists said that the approach that the Labour Party is recommending is the right approach to go in relation to the banks. That is their temporary nationalisation, the setting up of a banking commission, the establishment of a national investment bank which would provide the funding needed for our infrastructure to be provided. That is a difference between us. There is also the urgent need to get people back to work and to protect existing employment. As I said, in my view, the most significant figure to emerge from last Friday was not the number of votes cast for whatever party, or not the number of transfers that elected people late in the night. The most significant figure to emerge from last Friday was that we now have more than 400,000 people out of work in this country, and it's rising. And that gives rise to two things that we need to do. Firstly, we need to stop the hemorrhage of jobs, and we need to get credit moving again to business and restore confidence in business so that employment can be created again. But secondly, we have to do something for the people who are losing their jobs. There has been a concentration in the entire dialogue about the economic difficulties that the country has, about the public finances, about billions for banks and so on. Let us talk about the needs of people the needs particularly of people who have been losing their jobs. And that is why the Labour Party has been arguing for some new active labour market measures which would provide some assistance to those people. Why we have said, for example, that the opportunity of the recession should be taken to get people the training and the education that they need in order to be better able to take up employment opportunities and to start businesses as the economy recovers. You have taken up some of those ideas nominally. The idea, for example, that we had for an Earn and Learn scheme, but you only provided 277 places on it. We had the idea, for example, of a graduate placement scheme, which you nominally took up, but you only provide about 2,000 places on it. The need is much greater than that, and I believe that it will be a better use of public money to have people back in education and training, gaining experience in their relevant professions, rather than having people idle and on the dole. Those are practical things that can be done. A third thing which needs to be done is to have a fresh look at the National Development Plan and to reprioritise it in a way that brings forward the projects that will generate more employment. We have suggested, for example, that the programme of school building and hospital building and the community facilities that are so needed in many parts of the country, that could be accelerated. Firstly, because it is an investment in our future, and secondly, because it is a way of getting people back into work in the short term. If as a country and if as a government money can be brought forward in order to recapitalise the banks, then money can be brought forward in order to recapitalise the country and to get employment created again and to get the economy moving and get people back to work and to deal with people's real needs. We have talked about reforming the public service. There's been a lot of abuse of the public service over the course of the past year. Some of it has been very vulgar abuse directed at public servants who do good work and who are decent people and who are paid modest rates of pay. This party believes in the delivery of public services, good public services. We believe that there are certain things that are best provided by public provision, like education, like health, like the public infrastructure. But we do believe too that we can get better value for money from the entire public services, and that can be done by reforming the way that they are being delivered and the way in which they are structured. We have also argued that we should learn some of the lessons of what happened in this country, the culture of crony capitalism, that with respect your party has presided over for more than a decade now, but that we should at least learn the lessons of what has happened. What happened, for example, in the banks, this culture of you sit on my board and I sit on yours and somebody else chairs somebody else's board, and this old boys network operates hand in glove with each other, where people in the know what's moving and what's shaking and can be able to take advantage of it. That day is over and it's got to go, and that is why we have proposed a range of reforms of corporate governance in this country, so that what has happened with our banks and what has happened to our economy over the course of the past year or more never happens again. But in order for all that to come to pass, Count Corla, we need change. We need political change in this country. A government that has been in office for 12 years now, people who have been used to leaving the country run on autopilot, who have been used to a culture where no matter what problem arose, there was always money that could be thrown at it, there was always another board or body that could be established to deal with it. A government of that kind is not in a position to take the kind of decisions, to grab the country by the scruff of the neck, to deal with the problems that we have to deal with in this country now, to provide the kind of leadership to decent people all over this country who want to make a fresh start, who have a sense of patriotism, who want a better future for them, for their children, not a return to the emigrant boat. Deputy Kenny talked about some of the people that he met during the course of the election campaign. I want to tell you about one man that I met in a shopping centre. He told me he was a building worker, that he had worked on building sites all his life. He was in his mid-50s, said he didn't believe he was going to work again. That wasn't his problem. His problem was that he had educated two sons and put them through college, and they were now engineers. And his problem was that they were going to have to face the emigrant plane, like his brothers and sisters had to do in the 50s and the 60s and in the past. And he couldn't understand why, having educated his children, why, having educated them and made the sacrifices that enabled them to become professionals, that they now have to face the same economic fate that generations before them have to face. He wants a future for his children in this country. They want a future in this country. That kind of future can only come when this country recovers its own confidence, when we do get through the difficult times, when we recover the respect and the trust that we had abroad. And I believe that that can only come with a change of political leadership in the country. And the only people who can determine that are the people of the country. We are here elected to represent the people. We have a choice to make tomorrow, each of the individual deputies who are in this House, whether we in our hearts believe that there is confidence among the people in this government. We are required not just to come in here and to observe a party whip and to vote for self-preservation, as I think some members of the government parties will do tomorrow. We have a duty, every member of this House has a duty, to come in here and to reflect and to respect the will and the wishes of the people, which at this time, demonstrated last Friday in ballot papers and demonstrated over and over again in repeated opinion polls, says your government should stand down, make way, hold an election and let the people decide who should be running the affairs of this country for the years ahead.